We are live. Peace and Black Power family. Welcome to another episode of Do Knowledge Radio. Praise for Knowledge is Born. This is your host, Knowledge Born Allah, and we are here with part of the African Coalition. And I told y'all yesterday at the close of the program with Dr. Amari Rebel that we was taking a trip. Okay, so you taking a trip and you don't need a passport, you don't need a vaccination, okay, you don't need a visa, you don't need none of that. You understand? You just got on the virtual plane, you ain't need a mask, you understand? You ain't got a pack. Taking this trip to West Africa right here, boom, you just landed in West Africa and we here in Nigeria. We got Baba Alias here in the building, and we got our Baba Temitope in the building. So we're going to get an amazing update on this event that is coming up the 14th to 16th, okay? 100 years in the whirlwind, that centennial re-Africanization that to African resistance and a press forward towards African sovereignty and autonomy. So let me hand over the microphone to our African Coalition propagandist. Y'all like that, huh? Yeah. I'm telling you, Baba Alias, Kuji Chagulia.
Brother Knowledge Born Allah, man, that's an amazing intro. Peace and Black Power, and thank you for having me here, with you to just let the people know what we got going on. This thing is growing. It is amazing. The energy behind it is unbelievable. Everything has been fleshed out. We have, I think about 9 breakout rooms on Friday. We're going to have the Harriet Shotgun release party that evening. And because this thing is growing so much, and we've had so much interest come in, throughout the globe, across the globe, we had to open some things back up to some speakers because, they show an interest. So we possibly may be adding about 10 more speakers to the roster. We have some spoken word artists. One confirmed just a few minutes ago. Miss Georgia Me, she reached out to us and she says, hey, she has to be a part of this. And the support pouring in from the community has been amazing. I want to be clear that it's going to take us. The importance behind this is that we got our marching orders 100 years ago, and if we want this to continue for another 100 years, we have to be our best selves. We have to come out and support. I mean, ultimately, it's a steal. If you really think about it, the regular price, which you said, you still have one more week at the mid way mark pricing. But next week, we'll go up to our full pricing of $45. But think about this. You're getting over 40 hours of content. You have over 35 speakers, running workshops and breakout rooms. You have four fully functional podcast/radio shows that were broadcast for 2 hours. Okay, you have 3 keynote speakers every day. We will be have a an opening ceremony, and we actually have 2 people. We have a Baba and a Mama that's going to do the opening for us. We're going to have a closing every day. We've thought about this. We planned it out. We've been strategic, and what we tried our best to do is to make sure that it is educational, but entertaining. We don't want to get in there and do that old thing and, try to bring something that you could do, in live form and understand we're doing it virtually, and then something is missed. So we tried our best to infuse, that entertainment, because at the end of the day, like brother said, this is about us, moving towards sovereign liberation. But to do that, we have to have resistance education. So, spread the word that we're going to have people who offer alternatives, to the public food system, and them trying to, force ripe your babies back into the classroom, under this pandemic. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. We understand that their intentionality is antithetical to anything African. So therefore, come on in, come see what we got. Come see these African-centered homeschools that have been around for 10, 20, 30 years. And now they have heard the call and they've responded to the ECOBIN. So what they've done, they've taken their curriculum and they've made it virtual. So it gives us more options. It gives us a viable African option, because without the education, then we can't intergenerationally transmit information to our children. So then there is no bicentennial. So understand, African people, this is a one of one, as Brother Knowledge Born Allah told me. This is a one of one. You cannot wait, say, well, I'm going to do this next year. The centennial will be over. 100 years from now, it'll be the bicentennial. It won't be the centennial. You know, if you could put a value on this, you probably don't have enough mineral resources in the world to give it value. It is priceless. You know, this is a one of one. Be in the building. Be a part of this African experience. We have boots on the ground, 5 of the 7 continents. Today, we're going home. Today, we're going to the motherland. Today, listen, the brother we have today from Nigeria, you know, I go on his page, I be checking y'all out. I'm nosy. And I'm listening to his music. I'm listening to his vibe. Flat out, all I feel the Afro beats. I feel the Fela Kuti. I'm listening. I'm like, okay. That sounds like water. Don't get enemy. That sounds like that zombie. You know, that sounds like that witchcraft. So I believe this brother here is coming in that vein. So I'm done talking. Make sure you head over to www.dtc1.org. That is www.D as in David, T as in Thomas, C as in Charles, and the number 1.org. Purchase your admission. I guarantee you, Africans, this would be that thing that will help you begin your inoculation process so that you can prevent the genocide that we always face. If you don't have armor, then you're useless in battle. So, Brother Knowledge Born, I appreciate you having me on. Give them a little updates. I'm going to turn it back over to you. Peace and Black Power.
Peace and Black Power. He said D like David Walker. He said T like Thomas Sankara, and C like Charlie Murphy. Okay, C like Charlie Murphy. All right, and one like one God, one aim, one destiny. .org. So let's see. Yeah, Baba Temitope is with us. He in the whirlwind right now. Okay. Baba Temitope, are you with us?
Yes, very much. Greetings.
Greetings. Alafia.
Alafia.
Let me try my Yoruba, okay? Don't judge me if I mess it up, okay?
I think you're doing great.
Ibawani.
So that means what?
That means how are you? I think.
Bawoni. That's Bawoni.
Yeah.
Bawoni.
Yeah. Bawoni.
Yeah. Our dada. Ashi dada. You're doing great.
Hey, I'm trying, okay? I'm trying to get my life together over here.
Oh yeah, you are. And then, I think that is great, because there's power in language, I mean, these are the things that we are trying as much as possible to ensure that our people understand. I mean, because we cannot continue to deal with all of these colonial languages. Like in Africa, on the continent, there's so much premium being given to these colonial languages. So even we have countries within the West African region that pride themselves as Francophone West African countries, because of the colonial French language. And we have countries within the continent also that pride themselves as Anglophone, and all of these identities, and the languages do not say anything about us really as African people. So there's power in language, and that is why it is quite interesting and inspiring for us that our people in the diaspora are, paying attention to our languages, because our languages defines us. It explains who we are, basically, So I'm so pleased and, inspired by, your willingness to look into our language. So I think that is great. And you're doing great. It's just a matter of consistency.
Right. Language is a grand unifier and it's indicative of a culture. If you were looking for evidence of a culture and its existence, you will find it firmly and deeply rooted in the language. Because the language is our connector to a natural kind of being. Mama, remember, our niece says culture is a people's immune system. So if you look at the functionality of the immune system in the body, it's what protects the body and keeps the body in a state of homeostasis. So the connection to our ancestral lineage is rooted in our set ability to speak that ancestral language. It's timeless, and it's a grand connector back home. So it's evident. So we use this as evidence and a way of connection with our
Mm-hmm.
bond and our link with one another. So uh, for you, I wanted to talk about Pan-Africanism because we heard a lot of things in regards to relationships between our mother continent and in the diaspora. So, how does this Pan-African link become reestablished with you and I? So continental African and Africans from the diaspora. How do we further solidify our bond and our relationship?
Mm. I think, the whole thing, that we had faced as oppressed people, as African people, global African people, the oppression, the um, exploitation, the suppression that we have faced, for centuries, implies that we as a people, we must have that collective memory of who we are, as members of, better than the ideology of Pan-Africanism. And you would see that we wouldn't be talking about Pan-Africanism
I think we lost on the connection, so just give us a second, and he'll be right back. I see it. I see him back in. We lost you for a second, Bob, but you're back with us now.
Yeah, I am. Sorry. Can I go
Well,
on?
you finished with your... Yes, yes. You can continue.
So I was saying that we wouldn't be talking about Pan-Africanism today if we haven't, at a point in time in our history, faced the horrors of slavery, faced the horrors of colonialism. So all of these backward histories, you know, devastating histories, had impelled us as a people, to see ourselves as a global community. And like I was saying, it is only the ideology of Pan-Africanism that has that necessary prerequisite, because you look at the continent today, for an instance, you would see that we have several nation states, but these nation states actually weren't our making. You know, the colonialists, sat in Berlin to cut all of these nation states that, pride themselves today on the continent. And the entirety of these nation states exist in isolation, culturally, politically. and economically. In fact, most of these countries trades with foreign countries than they do with with their neighboring African countries. So I'm saying that our experience of slavery, our experience of colonialism, has mandated us, to see ourselves as members of a global community. And there's a way at which we think this is our lifeline. No matter how much you talk about it, what we face, globally has some basic linkages, which we must understand. The number one linkage will be the destruction of our collective sense of memory, the memory of who we are, our cultural, identity, basically. Because many of us, we must understand that there can be no freedom. There can be no freedom without we not having that cultural renaissance. Because for slavery to have occurred, for colonialism to have occurred, the perpetrators of these evils did their best in destroying our culture, because by so doing it to be easier for us to to be exploited. Now, having done that, the mantle then lies on us to then have a rebate, to then have that understanding that for us to move forward as global from we must appreciate our culture.
Brother, even the gremlins won't stop. You know what I'm saying? But what they can't stop. So, we gonna make this connection across this pond.
That's right. That's right. And what's deep is historical reference. And when you look at language, as I was saying, was a grand unifier. I was in a place called Iraq and a place called Afghanistan. And there were 42 nations in those places, exploiting those places for their natural resources and raping, ravaging, and pillaging. What I found was a grand unifier amongst the people, was the only thing that connected them together outside of their homeland. They recognized and they stayed together with the people who spoke their language, their mother tongue. That was the grand connector. They had their own compounds, they had their own language, they were dealing with their own culture in regards to that, and they did not mix with anybody outside of their culture, their language. They might have had issues at home. You know what I'm saying? They might have seen each other and be like, yo, we got some problems. Over here, you would never see it. You would never see it. So the bond that was forged in blood over there was because they understood that grand unifier was their language and their culture when they were away from home. You see what I'm saying? So, the only people that tried to mix with everybody else that was over there in the mix of them 42 nations was the people from America. Because we have a bastardized language that is indicative of a bastard deaf culture.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about the bastards who are the bastards all around the world. If you've seen that movie Inglorious Bastards, they even called themselves the bastards. You understand what I'm saying? So you're talking about a people that was going around and doing unspeakable acts of horror and terror. You see what I'm saying? In the name of who they are. So their name was indicative of their particular nature and inclination. So when we go back to language again, we remember and we understand that, this language has a root connector back to a cultural heritage. So their cultural heritage is pillaging, robbing, stealing. So you can still see that evidence to this day. So that's their language.
But
But
to even flip it on the other side, that was one of the major reasons why the institution that they employed here in North America, which they used to to exacerbate our enslavement, they made sure that we didn't speak our language. They made
right,
sure that those cultural expressions that were African were stamped out. you
right,
know, and I think, well, again, I don't think I know. Dr. Clark said, that was the difference between the institution of our enslavement here as opposed to the institution of our enslavement in South America, the islands. They still had cultural continuity.
right,
So
right,
when they fought, when they resisted, when they rebelled, it was still family. They weren't
right,
fragmented. They weren't, a millionth of a thing like, we became here because what they would do, they would probably find big lots, hey, you get in debt or something like that, you're selling us
right,
off. So, that language was an issue. I mean, and it was us, just like you said, it was us at some point. We had became so conditioned that if you were a newly arrived African, I'm going to do the work of making sure that you don't speak the language.
right,
I'm gonna make sure that I get all that Guinea man, out of you. I'm gonna make
right,
sure, that I impose the imperatives, the European imperatives upon you, so that you can be the best slave you can be, because it was not about being African. And I think that, just like you're saying, and brother Time Tempe, am I saying it correctly? Because I want to make sure I say his name right.
I think he got that top quick at the end. He got that quick. He got that, top quick at the
Timmy.
at the end.
So it's like right now, you or us attempting to, first of all, speak a native African language to one another,
Mhm.
and us understanding that no matter where you are as an African, we have that genetic memory to work on it. Like you said, become more consistent with it, and then it becomes our second nature.
Right. And here in the Americas, we learned another language that didn't require speech. It required a whole lot of action. Robert Timmy, are you back with us? Robert Timmy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I can. Apologies. Seems I had a network issue down here.
Okay. So, what would you say the relationship is like between Africans on the continent and Africans in the diaspora in
Uh,
regards
uh,
to? Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Finish. I think you're not done with the question.
Yeah, I was saying in regards to our relationship with each other. Whether we come visit, whatever. Like, what are some of those things that are there that are evident from your experience, and maybe some of the experiences of your brothers and sisters with our interactions with one another.
I think firstly, like I was saying earlier on, before the network issue came on board, there is that lack of sense of belonging on the
Mm,
continent, and I believe also in some places in the diaspora. And I think that's the first thing we must do. That understanding of who we are is very, very germane. You see, on the continent, uh, many of us have been dismissive, we have been dismissive of how racism on the continent, how it has been institutionalized, how European racism has been institutionalized, how Arab racism has been institutionalized. Many of us, we don't, because we think that because we don't see the Arabs, as much as, we saw them or our ancestors saw them, say, about 7th century ago, because they are not walking all around. We think that, the effect of their coming around in the first instance do not exist with us today. And also, we think also that because we see fewer Europeans, walking the continent, that means that we are free. That means that, racism is nothing on the continent, or it doesn't exist on the continent. But it does exist. So I'm saying that on the continent, there is that problem of people even understanding the nature and character of the Afrikaners, the nature and character of the African identity. So when the unfortunate, assassination of brother George Floyd occurred, we had to tell people, we had to, lecture people on the continent about the connectivity of this struggle, because some of our persons even on the continent were saying that, what is our business, what is our business about the killing of brother George Floyd? You can imagine that level of miseducation, that level of ignorance which exists on the continent, and it has been like this because, the oppressors, those that colonized most of these nation states within the continent ensured that there must be a detachment from our collective identity. So we on the continent, like a greater chunk of persons living on the continent, do not feel that there is that relationship between us here and our people in the diaspora. So there's been, in fact, a huge debate over this. When you go online, you see, young Africans, basically, spewing great deal of ignorance about African Americans, about Africans in Brazil, about Africans in Mexico, about Africans in Venezuela, and all of that. Because to them, they don't see that these are members of the family. These are people that we must necessarily, work in tandem with in order to build that global African community that we want. So this is the mindset that the Arab, institutionalized racism, and also the European institutionalized racism had caused on the continent. So I'm saying that for us to be able to connect with one another at first, we must necessarily, detach ourselves from the Eurocentric ideas and perceptions, that live within us. It is such a terrible thing, on the continent, extremely terrible. Our people, the world view that our people have about themselves is extremely being inspired by the worldviews of those that had colonized us. Young Africans think much of themselves within the light of being, European, both in and out. Young Africans think about themselves within the light of being Arabs, within, their world perspective, within the context of their understanding of one another. So how do we unite with all of these elements? How do we unite with elements that think of themselves as Arabs and as Europeans? How do so I think that the whole question around working on our sense of belonging is the most fundamental thing, is the most fundamental question that we must put out there as global African people, because we are few. For those of us that realize this connectivity, for those of us that are pushing for the agenda of the global African community, we don't have the population, and we don't have the population because, like I said earlier on, the colonialists And also the neo-colonial African leaders, they are as terrible as hell. They are also working their fingers to the bones to prevent we from building this global African community. So my take is that we must necessarily mobilize ourselves, get organized across the continent, get mobilized across the diaspora, and speak with one language against, the institutionalization of both Arab and also, European, racism that exists in our minds and also exists in our sectors, the educational sector, the health sector, and what have you. So I'm saying that for us to be able to build that relationship that we want, we must do some of these works that are very, very necessary. Are you with me?
That's right. Yes. So, in the words of our Baba, Malcolm X, El Hajj Shabazz, brother Wali, he said, the same rabid dog that bit you bit us. So, we are to have a grand unifier together. It should be firmly rooted in our family history of resistance. We have a symbiotic relationship whenever we are in error that we came to each other's aid. So whether you look at South America, whether you look at the Caribbean, or whether you look at today is Liberia's Independence Day. So if we look at the region of West Africa gaining its independence between 57 and 70, brothers and sisters from the diaspora were chief contributors to helping aid in that liberation. So we have a symbiotic relationship back and forth around oppression in regards to coming to each other's aid. And I think that we should further solidify those bonds in this day and time in regards to that situation when we look at each other for the type of vision that we're working together to fix and forge our relationships. Many of those relationships were forged in blood for the disconnect. So for the reconnect, it should be forged in blood as well. You see what I'm saying? Along with the changing in perspectives and mind frames that you were speaking to, as well. So I want to speak about the music. Uh, the Afrobeats surgence or resurgence. How do we relate those experiences to our collective struggle, and how could music be a unifier for us in this particular time?
Thank you. I think the most interesting aspect of it is that the originator of Afrobeat, and that's the person of Fela Nicola Kukuti, was actually inspired, or in fact, he discovered the political, you know, importance of music, in US, that is in America. He discovered that music can be a weapon, a potent weapon, to change the realities of any people. He didn't discover that in Africa. He didn't understand. He didn't understand that music can be a weapon. Can be a socio-political weapon, can be a socio-economic tool. Can be a potent weapon towards change. He didn't understand that on the continent, unfortunately. Because this also goes back to what I said not quite long. Because it is almost impossible for you to live on the continent and have that understanding of your Africanness. It is almost impossible. It is almost impossible. It is like magic, for you to live in Africa and understand the nature and character of your Africanity. It is almost impossible because the system, right from day one, teaches you that, you must not be African. That's what the entirety of the system in Africa does. Teaches you that you can never that. I mean, your aspiration in life must be that you look towards becoming a perfect, gentle European woman or man. If not that, a perfect Arab man or woman. No, that's what it is. So it was, in fact, difficult for Fela, Nicola Pokuti, to, when he started up in, with his music career, to discover that, music can actually be a weapon for change. So he had to go to America. And luckily for him, it was in America at a point in time where the civil rights movement was on, on fire, where the Black Panther Party, was extremely, vocal, and you have, comrades, revolutionaries who are articulating not just the struggles of Afro-Americans, but also the struggle of global African people. And he was lucky to have met, a particular member of that Black Panther Party, the person of Sandra Smith. And, according to the interviews that we have online, which this particular woman had given, she said that the first encounter she had with Fela, the originator of Afrobeat that we speak of today, she was not impressed. She felt that he was singing, modern stuffs. He was singing about soup. Actually, she felt that, no, this is so unreal. Because for them at that point in time in the States, they were raising their guns and their fist higher against the state, against the vicious American state. So, you cannot be talking about soup in your song. You cannot be singing about soup in your song and all of that. So she had to introduce Fela to Malcolm X. And that was the turning point for Fela. Fela said he read that book and everything about him changed. He realized that, the struggle of global African people has a major direction. And that direction is against, those that have suppressed our cultural identity, and also against those that are exploiting us economically, both black and white. So he understood this, having read that book, and he said that, music, he was going to use his music as a weapon, as a potent weapon towards social change. So when he came back to the continent, when he came back to Nigeria, the first thing he did was to put up, a well-organized band, invited newer guys into the band, and they kick it off from there, releasing powerful albums, releasing albums that were articulating the socio-political, tumults that the Nigerian people and African people were facing as at that point in time. And it was incredible, because Fela was basically the only guy doing this in Nigeria in the 70s, in the 80s, actually. We have popular musicians in Nigeria, we have popular musicians in Africa. But this was a man, this was the only man that was basically using his music as a social weapon. Others were singing about modern stuffs and all of that, frivolities and what have you, because they don't want to encounter the state. They don't want to face the state. So for us, really, Fela was, a different being entirely, because when he started up with his, political songs down here, the first, as we expected, the first, reaction he got from the state was repressive. They had to attack him. They had to beat him. They did the most terrible things, so just to emasculate him. They did all what they could. They burned his house and what have you. They really wanted to render him useless. Because you must also understand that in the 70s, 80s, when Fela was releasing these powerful albums, these politically charged albums, we were actually experiencing, vicious, despicable military regimes, despicable to the core. You dare not speak about their excesses in the public. If you do, you'll be arrested, you'll be jailed, and that will be hit. You can even be killed, because that was what it was, living under the, military regimes who don't answer to anybody. So in spite of all of this repressive, atmosphere, there you have a man, releasing albums upon albums, insulting the military, exposing their corrupt ways of life. It was unheard off on the continent. And that is why the legacy of Fela still remains important to us till date. And for me as a person, how did I become interested in Afrobeat? It's simple. You know, for me, when we started growing up, really, it was also impossible for us to be exposed to Fela, because till date, let me tell you, till date, the Nigerian state is so terrible to such extent that most radio stations, most TV stations cannot even afford to play Fela songs for you, you know, till date, 21st century. They I mean, if they should find their way into playing any of Fela's track, what they also do is to edit it. The best you can get is just the instrumental parts, and that's it. Because most of these radio stations, most of these TV stations are being owned by politicians, you know, corrupt politicians, till date. So they cannot even afford to play you Fela. So while we were growing up, it was not possible for us to, you know, to be exposed to Fela. So I grew up literally not understanding that there is something about music, that is a force within music, you know, that there's this in-depth power that lies within music. I wasn't exposed to that. And you see, it took me years, you know, before realizing this. Surprisingly, you know, the my way into conscious music was not even laid. Was not laid by Afrobeat, you know, so to speak. My path into conscious music began with the discovery of a particular conscious musician that we have down here. That was the person of Beautiful Nubia. You know, I was enthralled, you know, with one of his songs. One of his songs was actually the turning point for me, you know, as an African musician today. And he called that single track, he called it Omojuri. Omojuri. Omojuri, it's a Yoruba word. To translate that means what the eyes, you know, have seen. You know, what my eyes have seen, you know. And Omojuri, you know, Beautiful Nubia called that track Omojuri. And you see, that track, that single track, articulates everything about slavery, about colonialism, and about neocolonialism. And let me tell you, that track is just about 5 minutes or so, or 6 minutes. So I listened to that track. The first time I listened to that track, I was, wow, this is so impossible. How can a man articulate a struggle, a violence that we experienced for over 500 years, you know, within just 6 minutes? I said, this is almost impossible. No, I can't deal with this. So I listened to this track. I listened to this track day and night. You know, I there was literally nothing that I was doing without not listening to this, you know, track. So listening to this track was my first contact with what music can be. You know, how music can be a weapon of change, you know. I understood that from Beautiful Nubia's number of Onjuri, and I began to research deeply into music, conscious music. I began to listen to reggae. I began to listen to Bob Marley. I began to listen to Peter Tosh. At this point in time, I haven't met Fela. I haven't met Fela at this point in time. I haven't met Fela because we were not that exposed to Fela. Yes, we were not that exposed to Fela. We're not listening to him. They were not playing him on the radios. They were not playing him on the TV stations. So there was this particular day, I went to a particular gathering, and the guy said, it was one of our states down here, your state, you know, deepest part of the state. I was there, and there was this gathering, and the guy said, then I was a student that I was an undergraduate student, that have I listened to Fela's Army Arrangements? I said, well, I know Fela, you know, our folks spoke of him, you know, people on the streets, you know, speak of him even till date. You know, I've heard of Fela, but no, I haven't listened to him as such. And this person said, no, you must listen to Army Arrangement. I said, why? He said, well, because Army Arrangement explains why we are where we are today, you know, as Nigerian people. Okay, I said I would listen. I would do that. I didn't do that. Then the guy called me 2 days after and he asked me, "Have you listened to?" I said, "No." But I said, "What's your views about this army arrangement thing?" He said, "You just wanted me to listen." Then I think I had to go to his place, and they played me army arrangement, and I said, "No, no, no. This is going to be a remarkable change in my life." No, I listened to army arrangements, and that was it. I said, "Yes, I've discovered my path." Because also I come from a background where music is like an hobby for every one of us. My dad, he sings late into the night. It's like an hobby. Every one of us have love. Like we sing every now and then. My household, including myself. As a secondary school student, I sang at a point in time in the classroom, with the teachers and all of that, as an extracurricular activity, so it has been part of us really. But like everyone, and including myself, it was something of an hobby, not something that you could take up seriously. It was just something like an hobby. And you see, I listened to Army Arrangement by Fela, and I said, well, that I must begin to seriously research into the possibility of, using music as that weapon, to change the society upon which we're living in today. And I said that this man created Afrobeat, and the best thing I could do, if I'm truly going to have to, propagate Afrobeat, the best thing I can do is to get involved, you know, because immediately I was done with Afrobeat. Army arrangements. I downloaded most of Fela's tracks. I went to the DJs. They gave me almost every of his track. I downloaded all of them, and I began to listen to them. And I said, these stuffs are amazing. That the only thing I can do also to lift up the flag of Afrobeat is to get involved, passionately, is to get involved actively. And that's why I said, well, it's no problem with me that I must begin working towards it. The first thing I did was to learn my saxophone. Luckily for me, I was able to learn my saxophone by a great man. A great man taught me, how to play saxophone. And the great man is a person of Showboy. Showboy used to be Fela's baritonist, So he took me through the rudiment of playing saxophone, and he literally introduced me to the theoretical aspect of Afrobeat, and the groove within Afrobeat, the bass of Afrobeat, the instrumentations, that carries Afrobeat, because Afrobeat is a powerful genre. With all due respect to other genres of music, it's powerful in the sense that there is a lay down. We have rules and regulation within the faculty of Afrobeat, and it's so unfortunate today, really, though, that some elements are claiming that they are playing Afrobeat, but they are not playing Afrobeat, what they are playing is what they can call Afropop, not Afrobeat, because, like I was saying, there is a faculty of Afrobeat, and the faculty of Afrobeat has to do with the entirety of the instrument, that rolls within Afrobeat, the horn sections, the tenor guitar, the drum pattern, and all of that. All of these things are very, very germane. They are the things that keeps Afrobeat as a major, distinct, genre of music that gives Afrobeat its groove, without which you can never understand Afrobeat. Without understanding these grooves, you cannot understand Afrobeat. So it was from this moment that I then began my research into the powerfulness of music, the importance of music, the soul of music, and luckily for me, like I said, I was taught how to play my saxophone by Showboy, and he assisted me in releasing some of our first tracks. That was sometimes last year, and that was amazing. So till date, we are still keeping up with the flag, because we believe that Music is, like Fela said, it's spiritual. It's spiritual because it touches on everything. Like I said, the the contact I had with Omojuri by Beautiful Nubia marked the turning point. Because you can, within just 6 minutes, you can tell, you can articulate what you would have possibly read in a 400-page book. Just by understanding the powerfulness of music, by using music, by using music to speak to the crisis within the society, it lives within you. The point about music is that to explain the spiritual nature of it, it not only reminds you of the works that needed to be done. Music also gives you that clarity, as your purpose. If truly
You go out.
realities of the people, and they reminds the people of where they are coming from. No, that was their job in traditional African society. So what could have happened to that collective memory, purpose today? Because we now have backward elements we don't even understand, or we don't even qualify to be musician, or what they are doing is peddling, mundane stuffs like they sing about sex, they sing about drugs, they sing about gangsterism and all of that. And I think they are qualified to be called musicians. No, they are not. I think they are noisemakers, basically. And all of this is happening also because we are living in an era where we call the age of neoliberalism. And it's such a terrible age. It is an era where everything that has to do with revolution, everything that has to do with, changing the status quo, everything that has to do with, speaking truth to power, everything that has to do with that has got to be curtailed. And that's why we have the proliferation of all of these backward elements who are calling themselves musicians. There are so many, they are there and there. They are here and there. They get the best of contracts. They get to play their songs, their so-called songs on the radio stations, TV stations and what have you. They are being subsidized literally. By the oppressive we are experiencing today on the continent. The mass proliferation of elements who are actually using their music, their so-called music, to imprison the minds of our people. They are not talking about politics. They are not talking about economics. They are not talking about our sociocultural renaissance. No, so I think for me that for us as African people, we must also appreciate and we must also understand the powerfulness of art, not just music now, but art as a whole. Because without art, without our artists not understanding our purpose, without our artists not understanding where we are heading to, it will be difficult for us as a people to get to our Eldorado, because we need our artists the same way we need our politicians, the same way we need our activists, the same way we need our revolutionaries. We also need our artists to be able to inspire the people to be able to inspire the people to such extent that they'll be willing to confront, you know, the oppressive, you know, condition which we are living in.
We're getting this cultural revolution today. Y'all ain't expected to hear this. Y'all wanted to hear some jazzy Afrobeats talk. You understand what I'm saying? Y'all wanted to hear some of that Don't Rush talk. You know what I'm saying? Y'all wanted to hear one of them Afrobeat challenges today. So we getting the root right here. I love it. You know? I love what's going on right now. I used to know how to pick them. You know how to pick them. Okay? So if you made this cut right here, if y'all gonna see these speakers on the 14th to the 16th, you better know something. You better know what kind of scrutiny you had to go through, because everybody don't qualify. Okay, everybody don't qualify.
That's right.
Some of your
this is that.
Some of y'all favorite folk don't qualify.
You said it, I didn't. You said it, I didn't.
Some of y'all favorite folk don't qualify. Okay, so yeah, this is serious.
We wanted those who are clear.
Robert Timmy, you back with us?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
It's all good. You giving you making it clear for us. So this,
I think I left a few seconds ago, right?
Yes.
Oh, great. I just wanted to know.
So for this conference that's coming up on the 14th through the 16th, what are some of the things that you're going to bring to us at this conference?
I think at this time, really, for me, I just want our people to understand that our struggle, you know, our struggle is political and our struggle is economical. You know, there's this political economic phase that we must give to our struggle. Brother, you know, I recently have been focusing more on the understanding that Kwame Nkrumah gave us. You know, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, the great Kwame Nkrumah, you know, as to what the agenda of Pan-Africanism should be. And, you know, in the final analysis, you know, Kwame Nkrumah had said that, you know, Pan-Africanism must be about the unity of African people. Although he was giving this, you know, explanation within the context of continental Africa, he was saying that the unity of African people, the African nation states within the context of socialism. And you see, I'm taking that understanding, that conclusion, by saying that Pan-Africanism at this time and our gatherings at this time as global African people must be about how we can collectively, we the oppressed, you know, global African people, how we can collectively face, you know, our oppressive condition. I've been saying that, for instance, if we're going to have any gathering, that gathering must articulate why anti-Black racism, anti-African racism is still a phenomenon globally. Why? Why is it that, in spite of, you know, decades, you know, years, centuries, and all of that, you know, global anti-African racism is still a phenomenon? But you see, it is not that we don't know why it is. We know. But we must come together and articulate how we can change the tide, how we can struggle against the tide. And I don't think I'm saying anything new, you know, because I think our organizations in the diaspora, our organizations, you know, in the continent, you know, some of these organizations have been trying to articulate why this is a reality and why we must struggle against it. And I appreciate that. But I'm saying that we must give it a global African face.
Dropping them bombs over here. I think he's too African for Africa.
Brother Knowledge Boy, he's definitely not on Bollywood. I mean, you know, he's a sincere warrior.
Yeah. I love it, man. I do. And I think we need more examples on both sides, from the diaspora and from on the continent, to, you know, show that there exists a level of supreme seriousness in regards to our cultural safeguards and imperatives, and for us moving forward to close the gap in the space between one another.
And he's definitely shedding that myth that, you know, Africans have issue or take issue with Africans here. Well, Africans at home take issue with Africans, you know, that are abroad. I mean, you know, he's sincerely our brother, and he's making it plain how his conscious are the same ones that taught us.
Right.
Are essential. And again, you know, our teachers taught us, you know, resistance education. They gave us resistance education. That's why it's important for us to make sure we continue to always teach, propagate, promote resistance education. You know, so definitely, African people, be in the building August 14th through the 16th. You know, so you can get this food that's for your soul, that's for your mind, that's for your spirit. You know, allow it to stir you, you know, arouse the waves and the storms like that spirit of the irritated genie. You know, because hey, don't forget the Haitian Revolution began in August. So there's so many things that speak to why this is a month that Africans should pay respect, homage, commune, celebrate. This is our month. This is the beginning of our new year.
Right.
And it's not just for us here in America. It's not just for those of us on the continent. This is a global coming together. You know, like you said at the beginning, speaking that language, wrapping ourselves in a culture so we can be inoculated against genocide, so that we can move forward into perpetuity, because we are the ones that will secure our existence. No one else. About the face of the planet will ever, you know, work to ensure that we eat, that our children will eat. And if we want to understand and we want to have an African mind and our African heads, then, you know, come sit at the feet of these teachers who went to the universities that they weren't supposed to be at, saw the things that they saw, and heard the things that they weren't supposed to hear, and touched the things they weren't supposed to touch. And they went through and they organized it and they categorized it, and now they are able to articulate and bring it back to the people, make it plain to the people. You know, this is a communiversity. This is a communiversity. The African community has came and we have given you the university, the House of Life, which was the first university. You know, so, you know, I think it's one of the dopest dupes that the Europeans play on us, man. And this is coming from a teacher, how they'll sit and say, well, Africans didn't write. We weren't a literate people. We weren't a people that wrote. But then they'll sit here and tell you in the same breath that Alexander, the barbarian, and his Ptolemy freaks, went into Kemet and burned whole libraries. Well, wait a minute, what are in libraries? You know what I'm saying? Wait a minute. They'll sit here and tell you.
I guess it was camels up in there. Camels.
That's here and tell you if you go to seminary school, or I majored in religious studies. They'll say and tell you that, the foundation of Judaic Christian religion, which is Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, comes right from the pyramid and the coffin text. Well, didn't no Arab, Euro-Asian write the pyramid and coffin text. So it was some Africans that look like me and you, that wrote it. But we somehow or another that we get so wrapped up in your reason. We get so wrapped up that, we weren't anything. We were just, locked in barbarism until they came among us, that we miss those points, and don't get it twisted. I understand that African people, at some point, did exist in a state of barbarism, but that's so far, removed from where we are and where we were. It doesn't make any sense to even bring up. It's almost like, people try to tell you, well, what's the birth of the universe? Or what's the birth of the planet? How old is the planet? And those type of things. Like, what, those type answers don't even, or those type questions don't even deserve an answer, because there's no way that you'll ever be able to answer those questions. But one thing we do know is that when Africans were frighteningly upright, when Africans were circumnavigating the globe and bringing the light of civilization to other people, when they engaged in imperialism, they didn't bring death and destruction. They actually brought civilization, and they actually taught people how to be upright. Other people were still engaged in barbarism, and those are just facts. We can't deny that. And, when we say those type of things, we should say it unapologetically. We shouldn't allow people to allow us to change our mind because they say something emphatically. They say it with such great passion and eloquently that it makes us, bend from our position. Why behave that way? There's nothing on this earth that's new, because we've done it all. And that's not me playing the dozens, saying that, we did something that you didn't do. These are the facts of the situation. These are the facts of so we have to, take these things into consideration and move accordingly. And I really that this our 100 years in the whirlwind. If we get caught up, if we go to www. What you say, D as David Walker, T as in Thomas Sankara, and C as in Charlie Murphy, with the number1.org. If you head on over there, make that minor investment, I think that you and your family will have something that can be the instigating charger to change the situation that we're in, individually and collectively. Because we always keep growing individually, and we definitely have to grow collectively. So, and I'm even taking it a step further. I think that one of the reasons why we're stuck in the situation we're in is because we don't necessarily have a social theory. That's one of the things that Dr. Chancellor Williams talks about in Destruction of Black Civilization. I think when he gets to the chapter on a view from the bridge, correct? And if we had a social theory, then things would be different, because then we would have a codified system of behavior, how we relate one to another, how we deal with enemies, how we deal with intrusion. We would understand that, manhood and womanhood is something that's socially imposed. It's not biological. We confuse those things. So we understand that we have to have rites of passages in every stage of life so that we can make sure that, we're doing these things. So we have to codify these things. I really believe that conference, we can begin to develop a social theory that Africans around the globe can agree with, simply because you're going to have Africans from around the globe, involved in this, and they believe in one God, one aim, one destiny. Because this is about. It's about our babies and yet unborn. It's about honoring our ancestors. I don't think anybody that's here, is looking for reparations. Because how I always ask people, when you start talking about reparations and different things like that, or you beg for something from a hero, I always ask this question: what's the price for a dead African baby? And multiply that by 1 billion. I don't want to talk, reparations with you, because if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Bobby Wright said blood debts must be paid in blood. I'm not making none of this up, saying what they taught us. So I think that we need to really start being serious about being serious and understand that, no other people, though they are responsible for putting us in this situation, they're not responsible for getting us out of this situation. There you go. But now I'm now brother Knowledge Born Allah. He has a essay, and I want to say, and I'm gonna send it to you. And I want to say, if some of the essay is where he actually states in writing, blood debts must be paid in blood. They left it out of his book. And I was talking with Baba Baruti, and Baba Baruti said he believes that they did that intentionally, because Dr. Bobby Wright was one of those that he was just too raw and too uncut. But so
they killed him.
Well,
they killed him. Yeah, they killed him because of it. You understand what I'm saying? They killed him because of it. Him and Bobby Amos Wilson were Africans that happened to be something else. It wouldn't matter if they was janitors. You understand what I'm saying? That African mind that existed in those two men, was so profound and so threatening to the bourgeoisie that exists amongst us. You see what I'm saying? The bourgeoisie and that exists amongst us. He was the only person that I know of that was posthumously named the president of the National Association of Black Psychologists. Posthumously. You understand? He was the interim, and he was coming to clean house. So that should tell you something about some of these things that's going on and some of these people that come from some of these places as well. So him, I understand. Like I heard that, like out of his mouth, blood debts must be paid with blood. You understand? So that's real reparations. That's real reparations. And for those that are in laudable pursuits for these other things, I mean, give them to them. But this don't change Black August. Like I was saying yesterday, Black History Month is for the whole Rainbow Coalition. You understand what I'm saying? You can bring up all of those other people that you like, from the Renaissance and all this other stuff. But Black August is set aside for those warriors. Those names that they whisper around you. You understand? That they whisper, that they illustrated so beautifully the fear that existed. If you look at that old roots versus that new roots, they were shooting the name of Nat Turner, the utterance of old prophet Nat amongst them. You understand what I'm saying? It's said with so much disdain and hatred, so vile. You understand what I'm saying? That it was crazy to even utter it. So when they showed that old roots, Chicken George said, "Oh no, I'm about to go see, Master." And Master got the shooting at his ass. You understand what I'm saying? Like letting you know, like, look, that was a whole nother situation. So these terrifying warriors, Will the Executor. You understand what I'm saying? Sister Mary Turner and them, that was rolling when that with old Prophet Nat through and doing what they had to do, doing God's work. You understand what I'm saying? Doing God's work, doing that's that one God that we know. You understand what I'm saying? And that's that language that I was speaking about earlier with that grand connector that connected us. So whether we was in the diaspora or we was on another continent, we had a symbiotic relationship involved in blood. You understand? So whether we looked at the Haitian Revolution or we looked at the insurrections that were taking place, over 250 here in the United States. So we have to have that evidence to reorient mind around resistance that we come from lineage. That's a language. That's the language of the oppressed African resistance and rebellion and insurrection. That is a lineage. That is a spiritual grand connector back, just like we were speaking of the grand connection of the language. That resistance. How do you resist? Do you resist with your hands up? Do you resist with your hands up saying don't shoot? Is that a resistance? That's a surrender. That is a surrender. You cannot resist with your hands up unless your hands are clenched and you're throwing a fist. So when you're in a situation in the defense of your nation, they have to understand that they're dealing with a resistance force. So this is why these history lessons are so important. This is why yesterday is so important. You understand what I'm saying? Because with the youth, when I was out there at the Million Youth March and Dr. Collard was on the stage right before we went to war with the NYPD, he said the youth have God on their side. We stand here fearless today. We got marching orders to go into battle. Like there was no instruction manual telling everybody to get together. He was giving commands from the stage, and we were responding appropriately. Decide amongst you where you are. Who's going to unhook the railings wherever you are? And when he said it, we unhooked the railings where we was on. You understand what I'm saying? And we begin to mobilize. So if you see these young youth out here in that same kind of vein, that's a history of rebellion in this country. Our ancestors did it. Our ancestors burned this place down. That's a language. That's a language of resistance. So we get into this mode where we start looking at things that we have done ancestrally here, and we begin to scrutinize. And we get to fold up our arms and sucking our teeth and talking about, you're burning down the plantation. How dare you? It's a response. And the only people who was comfortable with the plantation and that type of bond service is those who was comfortable on the plantation.
That's right. So
this is a historical response. And we got that symbiotic relationship with Mother Africa. There would be no Haitian Revolution if we wasn't talking about Jean-Jacques Dessalines and the African woman who taught him. So right. Again,
Mama Toya.
Right. So we was talking about the Maroons yesterday, Queen Nani and the Maroons. You understand what I'm saying? So look, we have a symbiotic relationship with the mother continent, and the mother continent has a symbiotic relationship with us. We have political prisoners, but West Africa is free. That's what we got to realize. We have this is the reason why we have political prisoners. You can't have a political prisoner if you don't have a nation. You can't have leaders if you don't have a nation. So how do we have political prisoners if they wasn't putting in work for a nation? If they weren't looking to fund the a true emancipation or liberation of a nation. And when Baba Kwame Nkrumah came over here for school, and he was so enthralled by what he saw by the African Sea, there's a symbiotic relationship that motivated him like that. It motivated Amir Cabral and all of them other warriors to go liberate their nations. There's something about that symbiotic relationship when we together, and this is the foundation. We can get together and party and BS, like the last poet said. You understand what I'm saying? We can get together and party and BS, but they don't want to see us getting together like this.
Right. This is dangerous.
Right. And they say, oh, okay, y'all just talking, we talk too much and blah, blah, blah. And ain't enough talking going on if our youth don't understand who we are and what their purpose are. It's not reaching them. You know, one of the brothers said, you said it, that we get in the habit of preaching to the choir. You see what I'm saying? We get in the habit of preaching to the choir. We need to go directly to our family, our youth, our ancestors' return, directly to them and speak to them in their language, like I was speaking with Dr. Amari Rebel about. That's where the disconnect is. We're speaking. People are talking, but everybody wants to see some damn evidence. You ain't gonna roll with me if you ain't ready to produce no evidence. You see what I'm saying? And the youth ain't need no instruction manual to burn down the plantation. They ain't need nothing. It was natural. It was instinctual. So now, how do you sit with them and mold that and shape that vision to say, okay, we're gonna burn it down, everything. You understand what I'm saying? We're gonna burn it down in every way possible, economically, socially, politically, agriculturally, all of it. We're gonna do it this way, that way, this way, that way. So that's a blitz attack. So if we look at Blood in My Eye, we know that George Lester Jackson talked about the ambush. Okay, mm-hmm. He said it ain't no front lines. He said, whenever you get this together and you organize it, you catch them slipping, is what he's saying in plain language for us. He said, you catch your enemy slipping. You catch them while they in their car, while they out with their women. He said, even when they're on the toilet, boom, ambush. You understand what I'm saying? So he said, we get that work done, and then we go back and regroup. Baba Rudy talks about what retreat means. Retreat only means to come back stronger. You retreat to, refuel, rearm, repurpose, and come back. Where's that evidence? Asada Shakur, where is she? You understand? How did she get there? So she has some dedicated brothers and sisters who understood the suitability of retreat to come back. Oh, we back to get you. You understand what I'm saying? We came back to get you. So that is that renewed understanding. So any of this other evidence in regards to how we move, it has to be shown in a certain kind of way.
Knowledge born. I'm gonna toot my horn a little bit.
Toot.
I don't know if people. I don't really talk about myself. You see, when I came on the shows, I really don't. But me and my wife, we have 6 children, and my oldest daughter graduated from FSU. That's Florida State University. When she graduated from high school, she graduated 5th in her class. A1 track star, A1 basketball player. But the way we built her to win. We want, like you said, people want to see that evidence. Then, my oldest boy, he attends University of Central Florida. We usually stay in state because it's a little cheaper. Graduated 13th in his class. Pretty solid track athlete. He could have gave me more, but I let that slide because he was a big head. But again, like you said, it was the evidence. They had to see us win. My middle boy, who was named after, Idi Amin Dada. We have African names. That's because we're African. But he graduated in white. Got a wrestling scholarship. Won nationals in wrestling. Came back, hurt his hand, and he finished 5th in state his senior year. But I'm saying all that to say, we wanted to produce winners. We wanted to show that, it's okay to be African. It's okay to be uncompromisingly out loud, with no modulation African and still win. Now we have the littlest ones. We have a 5, 7, and 8-year-old. I I want to say the 7 and 8 year old. I mean, the 7 and 8 year old this past year in school, they both earned 2 Bs and cried like babies. You know, because first of all, the older ones set a standard that they know they have to live up to. Their first year running track, first year we had our team, which is Reptomaniacs TC. That's where the DTC comes from. These jokers went out there, and I'm talking about, you know, my oldest second group of children. She went out there, and I want to say came in second in the 400 nationally, came in eighth in the 800 nationally, and should have won it. But instead of telling the people she had to use the restroom, she thought she was being tough. My son pulled his groin and finished fifth in the 800 nationally. You know, and you know, I had some little babies go out there and get it done, but it was about me always telling them, when you rock those colors that's behind me, because that's the color of our team, that's our shield that we rock. You're not just out there by yourself. On their shoulders, and you are responsible for always making sure that you show them in the best light. So, like you say, it's that evidence. You know, in this sport, you got to be multifaceted. You got to be able to, you know, deal in different arenas. And like you said, you have to, because we're engaged in guerrilla warfare, you better be about that ambush. Sometimes, like Dr. Collins said, you got to stand eye to eye with him. You got to smell his breath. You got to stand on his toes, you know. And if you can't swing, be able to spit in his face, because we engage in all-out war.
That's right. And on that great day, he said, "If you're scared, move out now. God damn it!" You know? I love it. I'm telling you, I love it. So we got Baba Timmy back with us for some closing remarks. I know he was back and forth here while we was having this course. So. Baba Timmy, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
I have to apologize, you know, for the consistent break in transmission. I must say that it's a reflection also that on the continent there's a major war at which we have been fighting for quite some time now. You know, which is the whole point around capitalist exploitation. You know, we don't have the best of networks, you know, providers down here, service providers down here, in spite of the fact that there's, you know, people pay enormously for these resources to get the data and all of that, but we have the worst of, you know, network service providers, and that has been problematic. So I'm so sorry. I apologize, you know, for the consistent breaks and what have you. But I think that I'm also inspired by the discussion so far, you know, and also the initiative um, by you know, because I must say that, like you were saying, that there is this symbiotic relationship which has been in existence, you know, even before us, you know, between the diaspora and also the continent. I think it has to be, the symbiotic relationship has to be, you know, because the oppressors only try to, you know, cut off us from this network, cut off us from this relationship. They cannot kill the memory. They can cut the, you know, network. They can cut the, you know, the rope, but they cannot, you know, destroy the memory, and which is what is at play even at this time, you know, about the symbiotic relationship. So I think my final words would be that more power to you, more knowledge to you, and we must continuously encourage this kind of bond, because it is important, as you have pointed out, in the 60s when Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, Amilcar Cabral, what have you, when they were articulating the need for, you know, political independence on the continent, they were not inspired from any other place aside from, you know, the struggles of the struggles of African Americans. You know, the ongoing struggle in the 60s, you know, highly influenced major political independence down here on the continent. I mean, we see this in the 1950s, with the relationship Kwame Nkrumah was able to build with, greater number of African Americans, revolutionaries. So and also, revolutionaries from the Caribbean, talk about C.R.A. James and what have you. So I think that, we must continuously insist that this bond must be sustained, because we cannot get anywhere without this bond. Just as the oppressors are trying to, denelate us, destroy this bond on the continent, they are also doing that in the diaspora. I see that some of our people in the diaspora also have this, institutionalized ignorance about the continent. So they think of Africa as a rejected place. They think of Africa within the context of, anything bad. In fact, a chunk of our people in the diaspora would be anything except being African. This is the reality that confronts us today. But for us that understand these realities, for us that want to, that want to fight against these realities, we must continue to insist that it is only our collective bond as African people that can save us, and not the bond of Oprah Winfrey and all of that, because they do not represent our interest. Not the unity with Jay-Z and all of the black, bourgeoisie that we have over there also, because we are also waging a war against the elements that we have here, the African ruling class. So we must also wage the same war against, those that are collaborating with the American states also in the diaspora. So I thank you for this opportunity to, to air my views.
Definitely. We look forward to seeing you on the 16th.
Oh yes.
For your presentation.
Oh yes, that would be great. It would be my honor, and I will work towards getting a better, network, service provider, so that we don't have to, be confronted with this challenge.
Right. So, what about social media? Where can people find you on social media?
I'm on Instagram. Maberu _Aluta. Maberu is spelled MABERU _ then Aluta ALUTA. That's for Instagram. And on Facebook, I'm Temitope Fagunwa. Temitope is spelled TEMITOPE. Maberu MABERU. Then a dash. Fagunwa FAGUNWA. So I'm also on Twitter with that handle.
Okay, my brother. Matupe, for your time. Matupe, for your time. Love to you and your family, and we can't wait for the 16th to hear you.
Àwa náà dúpẹ́, àdúpẹ́ gan, àdúpẹ́ invitation. Olódùmarè, àwọn alálẹ̀ will continue to be with you and your family, and my people also over there who are struggling against, the white supremacists and the capitalist system that confronts us today. Mo dúpẹ́ ayọ̀.
All right. Otapo.
Ó dàbọ̀ bàbá.
Baba Al, we did it, okay? Now we back in Wacompton. We left Wakanda. Now we back in Wacompton, okay? Hope y'all enjoyed yourself. over there. Now we back in Compton. You know what I'm saying? I think we in with Compton and we in with Brooklyn because Bomani in the house. You know what I'm saying? So we in with Compton and with Brooklyn. So you got some serious warriors in your house. You got some Seminoles. You got some Gators in your house. You understand what I'm saying? You ain't playing over there, huh? You ain't playing over there.
And because I can talk all this African talk all I want, right? I could try to walk all this African talk all I want, but if parents, especially fathers, are known by the fruit they bear, and I'm bringing jokers that can wobble. I'm bringing jokers that's gonna stand tall. They're gonna stand toe to toe with you. They not bowing. They not bucking. They are. They understand who they are. That's why my little joker made me mad the other day when he was acting like he didn't know. What I'm saying, how to articulate himself. Man, that joker talk a mile a minute. He can run down what his name means. My one thing. At the school I teach at, we have a vocabulary parade, and every year, they want to be Africans. They want to be the people that we talk about. And, my son's name is Asar. So she did him in a whole Asar costume. And I forget her, at this particular time. But, when they didn't know who he was, they just thought he was a mummy. And he was like, no, first of all, there's no such thing as a mummy. I'm a cot. And the first cot was, and he ran it down to him. I'm like, hey, make it plain, young man. But he's my boy that has that healthy apprehension that I know will keep him out of trouble. He's not going to jump, head first or anything. He want to check it out first.
That's right.
Plan, and then he's gonna make it.
Right. I know this is. He's true to the name of this show. This scientific observation. You understand? Observation and then participation. Like Bobby Huey Newton teaches us. It comes from observation and participation. So you're gonna sit back, you're gonna do analysis of the situation before you said it. So I picked that up, automatically. I saw, I know he troubled. I know he troubled. You understand what I'm saying? We got the same religion. That religion is trouble, so I can see it in the youth. The ones who's troubled and the ones who truly shy. The truly shy one, they hiding and pulling and all of that. You see what I'm saying? But the other ones, they just they standoffish. They want to see what you got. They want to look for some evidence.
Yes, sir.
You see what I'm saying? They want to look for some evidence to see if you for real or you faking out here. You Jamaican or you just faking out here. Okay. Let's see what's going on.
Get caught up in that world.
Quick.
It's a
peak.
Resistance education. Like you've been saying this whole show, at the end of the day, the language of resistance. And the language of resistance is unmistakable. You can't confuse it with something else. You can't confuse with waffling. Like you brought up the Renaissance, those folks in the Renaissance. Well, guess what? That came from resistance because the Harlem Renaissance existed directly because of the UNIA, because of the Negro World, his paper. So, it's always the rabble-rabbles, the nuck-nucks and the ones that's causing all the trouble that usually instigate the change anyways, that the ones that are straddling the fence are the ones who've acquiesced, seem to benefit from. But we have to be the champions of the warriors. We have to be the ones that say Colin Ferguson, with pride. We have to be the one that say Art X6, with pride, and don't, be afraid to mention a name, to carry those, those warriors who set great examples. But it starts with the education. So we understanding that this is a month of resistance. We are going to make sure that this conference is providing resistance education, a viable option to Africans near and far and near, anywhere on the planet. And if you're on Mars, we have some of the best educators, that have done it. They're going to be, locked in, and they have taken the time. They have spent the due diligence to turn everything, into virtual, commutable education. So you don't have an excuse. We don't have an excuse, African people, about, oh, when August comes or when September comes or whenever school starts where you at, do I have to rush my baby off, back into, this madness? You don't have to. You don't have to, because these African people here, have done, they have heeded the call. They have responded, the way it was necessary for us to be safe and for us to transmit this generational, information that we must. It's not just about history, but everything about history. Like Dr. Amos Wilson says, you don't study history just for the sake of studying history. Like, at the end of the day, pyramids weren't built without an economy in place, because people just don't do work just because. So there had to be a specific economy that enriched those involved in the building project. It's one of the things that's running around here, because everybody trying to take advantage of everybody, the whole little pyramid susu scheme, which is basically sullying the name of the Isusu, the brotherhoods, that people practice down in the islands. And it's like, well, first of all, an Isusu or Susu is usually developed by a people, like you said, who speak the same language. They are a cultural group. It's a family, it's a network. And they use that to put themselves in a situation to economically grow without using Western style banks. In falsification, he says, because the Isusu was so strong in Cameroon, they couldn't even get, a Western style bank there. And they wondered why. When they did the research, they found out, so this is why you study history. You study history to understand the past as prologue. And if you want to move in a right direction, which is beneficial for you and yours, you got to look back to go forward. You have to have a Sankofa view to understand that the vision forward, it can be clear, so it can become clear for you. And if you don't have that, you're going to be stuck on stupid, forever. So understand that, we understand what Black August is about. We understand where it comes from. We understand the caveats that we've added to it to even make it more powerful. We definitely will be celebrating the centennial, of our flag, Declaration 39. We got all that. But understanding that we've looked back, and now we have to understand that what we need now to move forward, and what we need now to move forward is resistance education. And if all these educators don't come together and give that to our people, then we failed. And the thing about this whole thing, there's no failures. There's nothing but builders. Because when we've looked at history, when we've studied, the right side of history, what we have done, we have either won or we've learned. No, we don't take L's. Africans don't take L's. We win or we learn. So what we're going to do with this conference, we're going to take life by the horns. We're going to take the bull by the horn, so to speak. We're going to take on that Memnonian effort. And we understand that, that these scholars are in place to basically, like Brother Knowledge Born Alive said, they're going to show you the evidence. They're going to show you that they understand without a doubt what's at stake, and it's our children. And they're going to make it plain to you. So in actuality, the everybody presenting is basically doing a live interview for you. And they hope that they appeal to your taste, so then you can bring your babies to get this right knowledge, so that they can go out and understand that first and foremost, their responsibility as African children is to themselves and kind. At some point, because I always, I get kind of like frustrated with folks, and it's like, you don't really have to go to college to learn how to reverse engineer a locomotion or an aeroplane. You don't have to do that. You just have to have someone who knows how to do it, then come and teach you. And then you pass that on, and you pass that on, and you pass that on. But see, what happens is we get the information, and then we go on to other people. We get the information, and then we think that, somebody paying us a couple dollars, throwing us a couple crumbs, is going to benefit us. But when we get caught up in that averageous, that averageousness, we become the ostentatious cripple, like Mansa Musa, and that's a whole nother story. Then what we're doing, we're failing us. We're failing ourselves. We're letting down our ancestors. And we have to understand that we are our ancestors. Because if you take just one of them out of our direct line, then we don't exist. So African people, get caught up. 100 years in the whirlwind. 100 years in the whirlwind. Get caught up. Visit www.dtc1.org. Get your admission. Again, that is www.d as in David, T as in Thomas and Cora, C as in Charlie Murphy. The number one, A1, keep it A1, AfricanFirst.org. So that, you know, we can win, so that we can win, so that we can win. We are one people, one aim, one destiny. Peace and Black power. I mean, the scholarship is second to none. The scholarship is second to none that we provided for the people. You know, this is you talking about years and years of study, doing the work, years and years.
Look at Bo.
You know,
That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, you know, I can never, the audience will never understand, you know, the work that Brother Boy and I put in to just, you know, get the ball rolling. Because once people got in, I mean, their genius, like yourself, has taken this thing to a whole nother level. But the fact that, you know, that he, when I called him and he was like, then he was like, you know, brother, let's ride with it. You know, he understood that this right here is the writing of history. Someone else, our children, will look back at this, and now they have to up the ante. We've set the bar. You know, this is not a play thing. You know, this is sincerely about, you know, our future. This is sincerely about, you know, us existing until the light goes out on this planet. And we are the ones that will secure that. I can't say that enough. You know, this is totally about, you know, think of Brother Knowledge Born. I didn't realize that your arms were so long. I didn't realize that you could reach all the way back, you know what I'm saying, to Brazil, and you can reach to Nigeria, because that's where you've been reaching, and you don't reach all the way to Sierra Leone, you know, and now you're gonna reach over to Afghanistan and bringing these, you know, scholars in so people can get a preview of what to expect. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, this is serious work. And, you know, like I said earlier, I mean, to be honest with you, you know, we're engaged in treason. I mean, that's really what we're doing, you know, right. and treason is punishable by death. So every African that's involved, they're serious people, you know.
Good luck showing up over here.
and I see that emotion. But you know, but that's what we're doing. You know, we're trying our best to understand. It's like, you know, the end of the movie Sankofa. Right. The African says the snake, you know, gonna eat what's in the belly of the frog. Right. You know, that's the work we're engaged in. Because sometimes people don't necessarily understand the work. They don't understand the things that we sacrifice. They don't understand the things that we give up and the chances that we take to be so public with our positions. They don't understand that at the end of the day, you know, I can go right now and probably make $20,000 if I go into the district here in Tampa, but I refuse to, because I'm not an intellectual mammy. I'm not going to spend my time. I'm not gonna, you know, the due diligence that I paid and the knowledge and expertise I've gained to try my best to become a master teacher. I'm not gonna go give that to a Euro Arab of Asian, you know, little spawn. You know, I'm in the business of trying my best to give the information to African babies so they can be right and exact, so they can be ahead of the game, you know, when they decide to engage it, you know, than we were, you know, and that's my call. You know, so I mean, at the end of the day, you know, people have to understand that, you know, we on the front lines. You know, I can't remember who said it, But they say, you know the true leaders because they're the ones who are closest to the enemy. And we are the ones who are closest, to that enemy. We are the ones who have picked up that spear and that shield that was, figuratively dropped by Nana Dale Jones or Baba Ishaka Musa Barashango, and the
Right.
list goes on and on. Dr. Khaled. So I mean, we are their children, and
Baba Steve Copley Sr.
yeah, absolutely. And we are their children. And one thing about me, I ain't never been, embarrassed by my parents. I don't care what shortcomings someone else may think they have. I'm going to celebrate those people who raised me. I'm gonna celebrate those people who took the time to teach me right from wrong. I'm gonna take time to celebrate and honor and pay homage, to those people who protected me with their very lives. Because that only makes sense to me. I'm not going to throw them to the ash can of history just because they make someone else feel uncomfortable. And that's just how I have decided to live my life, and how I've decided that I'm going to live, to how I'm going to raise my children. And any children that come around me, for that matter. Because if you leave your babies with me, they're in African care, and that's
What
just
happened
what
to
it
my slideshow? That was my highlight. Y'all got to put the slideshow back in there some kind of way or something.
Hey, bet that up.
Send it to me so I can put it. I can make it a little button on here or something. I need that. That slideshow is good for my soul.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good for my soul.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But we, like I said, we wanted to just change the look just a little bit because
I love it. I love this upgrade. It looks beautiful. You see what I'm saying? Like, it looks beautiful. It's there. My selling point was the psychology of resistance, and that that slideshow has it there. Boom, 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 boom.
Yes,
You've seen our sisters, you've seen our brothers, you've seen everybody. You see what I'm saying? In different facets and time frames in history. So we don't just get stuck and say, well, it's just this. You understand what I'm saying? It's just this. And then, we start, because we teach math, people start subtracting. That was such and such 100 years ago. Like, nah, no, like, let's look. This wasn't hundreds of years ago. You see what I'm saying? This was in the 70s. This was in this time. And then you can relate those experiences forward. So like that Sankofa moment you was talking about, it deals with the psychology, So resistance has to be the chief motivation and motivator and actualize in this particular, thing right here. You see what I'm saying? Resistance has to be there. And,
yes, sir.
And as I said earlier, that I got, from our brother, you can't resist with your hands up, saying don't shoot.
Yes, sir.
And you can't resist with your back towards your enemy, running away.
That's right.
So final words before we wrap it up, because I done stole you for like 4 hours almost, something like that. Took us like an hour to get on there.
Anytime, but that's okay. Anytime you need me, I'm here. Like I say, it's about this work. This project, is bigger than 4 hours. This project is about family. It's about us understanding that we are a global family. Get rid of the cliques, the ethnic thing, all that stuff. We are one people, that came from that southern cradle. So make sure you get caught up, 100 years in the whirlwind. Visit www.dtc1.org. Again, that is www.D as in David Walker, T as in Thomas Ancora, C as in Chokwe Lumumba. How about that one? The number 1.org.
You can have it. You can have it. I was rolling with Charlie Murphy because we got some balance up in there. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But we could roll with Chokeway, you know. We could roll with Chokeway.
Yes, sir. You know, but it's always love. If you ever need me, just just hit me, and I'm coming.
As long as it ain't Clarence Thomas, you understand? So,
because he might bring Anita Hill, so or that white thing.
we could switch it up and add in Colin Ferguson if we wanted to, you know.
There you go. Yes, sir.
You know. So, yeah. So we about to get up out of here.
Yes, sir.
Look at Bo. Bo is delinquent. You see what I'm saying? Look, he delinquent.
You ever talk about love the camera? Nah.
Yeah. And ain't nobody on camera more than that man. You see? You said, look, he made sure he put his own picture on there. You understand what I'm saying? Check him out. You know? Check him out. That's Bobani, aka Lamuma's Revenge. Look at it. You understand what I'm saying? That's what Lamuma Revenge looked like. If that, everybody run around if such and such if this was a person, that's Lamuma's Revenge right there. When you see my brother from Brooklyn. He not from Compton like the rest of us. He from Brooklyn. And he in Canada right there. Canada. You delinquent. You know what I'm saying? So I see you on Wednesday. UFG. So we're about to bounce out of here. I don't think I got no other interviews for the series today, so I'll be back later on for something or another. Peace to the Vanguard. Look at that.
Yeah. Now we gonna tell them. Back in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African. I'm an African. Yeah. Now we gonna tell them. Back in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African, I'm an African, I'm an African, I'm an African. Yeah, y'all like that? So no more. This man's mind is open. I'm an African, I'm an African, I'm an African, I'm a. Let's get back to the
motive is best developed by recognizing the common enemy.